Hi everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video we're talking about the most important, the most powerful add-on in the entire game here in World of Warcraft, WeakAuras. What are my top 10 favorite WeakAuras for Shadowlands that I couldn't live without? WeakAuras does a whole bunch of different things. It's super powerful. It's the best add-on for improving your gameplay. I'll show you a few different examples here in today's video. First up, let's dive right in. We're going to look at combat WeakAuras for your spec specifically. This is the most commonly asked question I get on the channel, I think, which is, what is your UI here in the middle? Where can I get that? How can I use it? This is WeakAuras, right, guys? These are WeakAuras, and I typically use WeakAuras that I've made myself for my own specs. These are my shadow WeakAuras here, and what we have going on, and I'll show you how to get them afterwards. But here you can see I'm tracking my CDs. I can see my dots on the target. If I pop a defensive, I can see when I've got a defensive active. If I go into void form, I can see when void form's active. So I'm tracking my CDs. I can see when my dots are on, when to refresh them, and so on and so forth. It's just very easy to track all that stuff. I don't really need to think about it too much. Basically what you're doing is you're taking the most important parts of your action bar, the most important part of your buffs, your debuffs, you're putting them all in a nice central place where at one quick glance you can see everything. I even have, look at this, I even have a redundant insanity bar right beside an existing insanity bar. Amazing. But you can track all of that info in a real central place at a quick glance. This is probably the biggest thing that makes you more effective at playing your character, right? I can tell you from playing on betas here for Warcraft that when you go in and you don't have any WeakAuras, you don't have any UI, any add-ons, it becomes a lot harder. It's just harder to track that stuff in the game. You got to be looking all over the place. Something like this makes it much easier. There's loads of different people have their own versions. These are my Shadow Priest ones, for example. I also have several other specs up here, and there's going to be way more coming as well. But you can get the insanity bar and then the rotation. You just have to grab this big wall of text, yeah, and then you just paste it into WeakAuras in the import section over here, and you'll get them. But yeah, I'm going to be uploading loads more specs. That's on my Patreon again. You can find the link in the description if you want. And there's loads of other people on Wago, which is this website, wago.io. We're going to be looking at this one next, where you can go in and you can actually just search for WeakAuras. You'll find loads of packs there. So I encourage you to just find the one that you like, that works for you, or take the different parts of ones that work for you, put them together and make your own customized pack that gives you the information that you need. Okay. Next one then, as we see, is the Mythic plus Vault loot. You can actually see it active over here. This is super handy. Unfortunately, I haven't done many Mythic plus dungeons this week, because if you guys have been following my Shadow Priest stuff, not only did I get a soul-letting ruby from grinding it out and then upgraded it with Valor, but after grinding it out, it showed up in my Great Vault. So I have my soul-letting ruby, so I'm not too stressed about grinding Mythic plus. It's mostly for fun now, and I'm focusing more on other characters, really. But this, basically, it's a WeakAura, and it shows you how many Mythic plus runs you've done this week, what levels they are, and then it's also going to have these colored sections here for your Great Vault loot. I think it might have a good example. Yeah, perfect. Look at this example here. There you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This guy's done the plus 10. And it shows you exactly what happens. So you can imagine, okay, if I did another plus 10, I'd have a plus 10, plus 10, plus 9. This would still be a plus 8. This would still be a plus 7. I'd have to do a few. It just slots stuff in. You can basically track what you have done, what item level rewards you can get out of the Great Vault, and so on and so forth. So this one is super, super good, especially like at the start of a tier. It's extra good, where you are running lots of M+. It's kind of a pain in the ass to keep track of it. This lets you really easily keep track of it. And also track how many theaters of pain you've done for soul-letting rubies. That's always fun. The next one over here is the Mythic plus exclamation mark keys WeakAura. So this is very simple. I'll annoy my guild here. Actually, can you guys see the chat box? You can't. Hang on. Let me go invisible. If I type in exclamation mark keys into chat, there we go. It's going to make people with the WeakAura, there's like no one online right now, very few. It's going to make them share automatically in chat, anyone who has the WeakAura, what keys, what Mythic plus keys they actually have right now, which is super, super helpful, right? Mostly this is when you're in a party. It's just a nice, quick thing. You know, you join a group with your guildmates and you're like, hey, what dungeon are we doing? Exclamation mark keys in chat. These are the ones we have. We don't have to manually share them. It's just really nice. It's really nifty. So I really recommend that one. This next one is probably the most important gameplay one. And this is an interrupt tracker, okay? An interrupt tracker. Again, there's lots of different versions, so you can do that. That's going to be totally fine. I see guildmates have shown up. Oh, sharing their keys. If I show you... Yeah, okay, here we go. I've got actually like a video clip from actually the DOS 14 I was doing last night. But this shows you up here, interrupt tracker. We can see which people have their interrupts ready, when they've used them. This is just super, super useful, especially in difficult Mythic Plus runs where you need to be interrupting things. You know, if there are kicks that need to happen, you can see exactly who's used their interrupt, when it's coming back. It's easy to set up interrupt orders. This is probably the most important WeakAura, especially if you're a DPS or tank. It's not really relevant if you're a healer too much, unless you're a resto shaman. But for example, right there, you could see it right there. For example, we had double kick on the Hex. A little bit inefficient, but not a huge deal. Double kick on the lightning bolt, lightning discharge, right? It's kind of useful. You can see that stuff in real time and you can track it. And like I said, you know, this is, you know, this is a very casual run here with a pug and a couple of guildies on alts. But as you get better in Mythic Plus, you can... Visually seeing this will help you to improve, not stack up your kicks, communicate more. Super, super important. Highly recommend. In fact, I would say it's mandatory to have an interrupt tracker. Next up then, we have the dungeon targeted spells. Will we see it show up here in the dungeon? Maybe. Let's go on a bit further. And I can't remember if there's any targeted spells off the top of my head here. Wait, there we go. There we go. So you can see it's glowing here. So basically this WeakAura does a couple of things, right? It's going to make your raid frames, your unit frames glow, your party frames glow whenever you are targeted by a potentially dangerous targeted spell. In this case, I think it's showing the frost bolts on this particular fight. So that's really useful for the healer to understand who is being targeted by what and where they need to be directing their heals, who is going to need healing in the next like 2 or 3 seconds, right? It's also very useful. It also plays ping sounds for you, the player, as well. So if you are targeted by something, let's be honest, you're a DPS, you're probably not looking at your party frames all that much, but that's okay. This WeakAura is going to, you know, it's going to play a ping sound, so you know, oh, I've been targeted by the boss with this thing. It makes it really obvious for you. So you can, you know, whatever, pop spell reflect, pop a defensive, whatever it is that you need to do. So yeah, highly, highly recommend targeted spells for the dungeon. Very useful. Really, really nice. The next one is one that you've probably already seen. We've got a few Mythic Plus ones here in a row. Then I've got a few different raid ones sort of at the end as well. But this is the Mythic Plus timer. So that's what's happening up here, right? That's what this is up here. This replaces the default Blizzard UI and like the questing UI and all that sort of stuff when you're in a Mythic Plus dungeon. Obviously, you don't need that stuff in a Mythic Plus dungeon with this new sort of improved version. So you can see the FXs, you can see the level of the keystone. You can also see your exact time out of your maximum time limit. You can see the breakpoints for getting extra chests, you know, +1ing, +2, +3ing the dungeon. You can see your splits as well, how many minutes into the dungeon run it took before you kill the different bosses. It shows you your deaths and how much time you've lost to deaths. One thing that it does that's very cool, here we go, perfect, is when you are in combat with enough trash to kill, to trigger a prideful, look at this just starts glowing. So this is a really nice way. It's just a much clearer way to see this stuff. It gives you a really good idea when the pull you're actually doing is about to trigger prideful, which, let's be honest, is something that without WeakAuras or without add-ons, we can often forget. It makes that super obvious. So really cool. So you can see, bam, 60.94. Here comes the pride. Just very, very helpful. And yeah, it just helps you make decisions. You can like, oh, we could potentially, whatever, 2 chests this run. You know, it's cool. It's really, really good. So I highly recommend that one. Another WeakAura I have that I personally don't use is called Zentracker, Interrupt and Cooldown Tracker. I think, yeah, this is a perfect example of some of the stuff it can do. Now, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but one of the most common ways you'll see this being used is this number 4 section over here, where it puts like major defensive cooldowns and major offensive cooldowns as well beside the unit frames of your party. I personally don't use it. It's a bit too much clutter for me, but I can really understand people really, really loving this, and this could be extremely helpful. Certainly with other DPS, especially coordinating your DPS cooldowns it can be a really good visual guide. Like I can see, for example, okay, this monk here, he's got Zwen on cooldown. He does have 2 charges of Storm, Earth, and Fire though, so that's what he's bringing to the next fight. I don't have meta on this Havoc Demon Hunter doesn't have meta. Okay, cool. You know, you can make decisions about how you're going to pull packs, who's going to pop CDs where. It's kind of helpful. So yeah, again, I personally don't use it, but I can really understand. This is, I think, one of the most popular. It's got over 52,000 installs. Yeah, this one is super popular. People love it. I don't use it at the moment, but maybe I will in the future. The next one, this one is another really nice thing. Group buff. This is actually a slightly different one from the one I have, but you go. You can actually see it up there, which is this. Boom. I have one that you can click, actually. I'm not sure. Is this the one that you can click? No. Hang on. Let me actually see if I can find the proper one. Group buff. Clickable one. I don't ever really click it. Let's just search by stars. But I mean, you could see what it does basically. VFA raid buffs, buff tracker. I think this is the one I use. Here we go. Clickable class buffs. So yeah, for basically it's for battle shout, powered fortitude, arcane intellect. It basically just puts up this thing. When someone in your party is missing it, you can actually click it. I have it obviously hotkeyed quite conveniently. But yeah, it just very obviously lets you see when someone needs one of these buffs, because it's obviously very important to have those on. It's easy to forget. I also recommend similar things, perhaps for like shadow form or moonkin form. I know that's a mistake I've made several times already on my balance druid, is like going from travel form into combat but not popping moonkin form properly, and then you know, stuff like that, like stupid stuff like that, or shape shifting out of soul shape. I'm forgetting to go back into moonkin form. You're like, wait, why am I doing bad damage? Oh, I wasn't in moonkin form. Something like that can be very useful too, right? The next one, this one is for raiding, which is the Castle Nathria Glows. This is a great one for really raid leading or healers in the raid, anyone like that. Let me see an example here on Stone Legion Generals. If we hit play, very similar to the dungeon targeted spells, what you're going to see is when dangerous effects come in on the raid, there we go. We've got actually 3 of these going off right now at the same time. So we can see different glows on the raid frame to draw your attention, so you know that something bad is happening to these players. So for example, Avi here is being targeted by the Ravenous Feast, which is massive single target damage. And you can see that one of our healers has slapped a Blessing of Sacrifice on her to protect her straight away. These other guys, you can see that they are popping a Heart Hemorrhage, which is a massive single target dot here. So we've got a Bark Skin for a Heart Hemorrhage. There's also a Bleed, whatever. But you can basically see this stuff. It updates dynamically, and it makes your unit frames very easily just more impactful. And this works with all sorts of different unit frames, which is fantastic. I'd say it's a great thing to have for almost mandatory for a healer. It just makes your life so much easier, and it also teaches you about the mechanics nicely too. Here you can see it glowing for Wicked Blade. It's even great for DPS players if you are ever looking at your unit frames, because it gives you that extra info. It's just super, super good, right? Super, super good. So highly, highly recommend that one. I need to make this smaller. It's in the way. Where am I going? Too many windows. This one. Okay. And then the final one, this one is very cool. This is the Castle Nathria Anchor Interrupt Order Collection. This one is a little more complicated to set up, but basically what this does, I actually don't have an example to show you. But I can explain to you what it does, because we're late in the video and I'm too lazy to edit it. I'm too lazy, but this is huge. It's actually spelled incorrectly here, which is funny. But basically, this is essential for any raid tier, and you get the new version for every raid tier. But there are spells, typically in every raid tier, that need to be kicked, and you need an interrupt rotation. And oftentimes, you can have multiple interrupt rotations going on at the same time. You know, it's like it's a Mythic raid, right? How do you deal with that? This is how you deal with it. So what you will do is, in fact, you can see it here. This is our Sire Denathrius one, right? I have start line in my Exorcist raid tools. In my node, I have start line with a marker, and then I have player names in there, then cross and player names, and then end line, and that basically plugs into the weak aura. You also need something like, if I open up my bigwigs, you need something like bigwigs, which is going to auto mark. So again, for example, if I go to Castle Nathria here, we're looking at Sire to Nathrius. These are only on Mythic, right? I think they're only Mythic. Yeah, these baleful shadows, they're going to be auto marked with skull and cross. And then basically they're going to have a box over their head that says 1, 2, 3, or 4. In this case, 5. It's going to be up to 1 to 5. And basically you can just look at that, right? I can look at skull and I can see above its head that it's like kick number 2. It's kick number 2. It's their turn to take it. If I'm kick number 4, I'm waiting. Then when it comes up to kick number 4, again, you can set up these the weak aura to do all sorts of different things. Like you can have it glow if your interrupt is next, have it play a sound when the specified cast starts, have it do all sorts of stuff. You can print failed interrupts in chat. In fact, I'm going to turn that on. I am going to turn that on. But yeah, you can set up all sorts of things. You can also set it up to manually do stuff, to manually kick specific raid markers. I think definitely having the Exorcist and having the raid leader organize it's the most sensible thing. But this is basically, if you ever see that white box with a number above an enemy's head in a raid fight, that is what's happening. It's to coordinate kicks without having to verbally communicate mid-fight, right? It just automates the whole process, and it makes it much easier. And again, by playing those warnings, by having those glows, it makes it much more obvious. I can't remember one example. Let me see if I can find it. Cause let me see. Cause I would have used it here. Oh, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is on N'Zoth Mythic. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So we're coming in here. So there, you should see it above Psychus's head. There should be the box, and I'm kick number 1. So there we go, number 1 with the glow. I might miss it actually. This one's quite tricky. Yeah, I missed it like a boss. Absolutely missed it like a boss. Actually, never mind. The tank is supposed to take that first one, and then I take the next ones. But here you go. You can actually see it 2, then number 3, and you can basically track these things, and you know when you need to worry and when you don't need to worry. All that sort of stuff. So we're actually tanking Psychus right now, which is also very funny. But let's see, when it comes back around to 1, there we go. 1, my kick is next. Will we get it this time? There we go. We switched on to Psychus. Okay, awesome. We kick him, and then we're moving on. So you can see that in action. Super, super good. And again, in this case, there's only like individual kicks happening at any given time, but just super useful. It makes it very clear as to what's going on and when you need to interrupt, right? Basically, so there you can see number 4 was missed, and then it's very obvious for us that we're up next as number 1. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that stuff. Do we kick it? Yes, we do. Look at that. Amazing. The weak aura at work, making us better players, sort of. But guys, there you go. They are a bunch of different ones. I'm also going to share you another one. I'm going to link it in the description. This was made by one of our players. You can see I've got loads of these, by the way. Foolproof seismic upheaval. But this one is called Very Important. Very Important. So if you are doing any progress on Sire to Nathria's Mythic, for example, like we are right now, or Sire to Nathria's Heroic even, or even Raid Finder, you could definitely share this with your group. It will really enhance your gameplay for sure. Very important. I'm definitely not joking, and it's definitely not a meme. Yes. But yeah, lots of cool stuff here, like, you know, timers on General Call's Wicked Rush and stuff like that. So many things you can do. It was actually hard to pick just 10, but those are the 10 I picked, guys. I hope that you found it useful. Let me know in the comments down below if there are any weak auras that you can't live without, that you would like me to show you, or that you want me to know about so I can show other people. I don't know. Whatever. Just let me know if there's weak auras that you think are amazing and that people should use. Let's just leave it at that. That's the most obvious thing. All right. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.